Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here for the beginning of our second straight month of Occult in celebration of the Dark Archive. Which, great read by the way. The short video I made last week was definitely worth it. It's been a good time reading that. Either way, today we are looking at a deity whose domain is madness, who is known for causing phenomena to warp a person's flesh and mind. We are here for Lamashtu, the mother of monsters, deity of demons, madness, monsters, and nightmares. So let's start this sideshow. But as always, let's see where you can find information on the goddess yourself. Like all the others, she first appeared in Gods and Magic, both the 1E and 2E versions. However, the real meat first appeared in the 5th book of the Rise of the Rune Lords, titled Sins of the Saviors. This, by the way, makes her the second god to get a full write-up. This information, of course, reared its ugly head again in Inner Sea Gods. She is 100% evil, so further foul deeds are in Face of Corruption, and of course her twisted domain lies in the book Planar Adventure. In addition, we have side tangents that take us across the various bestiaries, but also to Divine Anthology and Starfinder's Galactic Magic. There's a tale told about how, long ago, after gaining the power over beasts, Lamashtu called all the animals of the world before her. One by one, all animals of the earth presented to her their fur and feathers, muscles and teeth. Then she laid eyes on the silken scales of the python and declared it her mate. From this union, the first Medusa is said to have sprung. This is just one version of the legend. There are thousands of monsters who worship Lamashtu, and each have their own tales of the animal Lamashtu chose to give birth to their species, like the jackal for gnolls, or the sparrow for harpies. The best part is we're not sure that they're not true. Truly, the mother of monsters. It's kind of hard to mistake Lamashtu for anyone else. She appears as a humanoid creature with the head of a jackal, 3 eyes, and usually 2 black vulture wings. And of course, the classic snake foot tail. Everyone has one nowadays. She is always in some form of pregnancy, usually well along, and her stomach is covered in a variety of nasty looking scars. And while other deities are associated with their weapons, none are more so than Lamashtu and her twin falconers, Red Lust and Chillheart, one of fire, the other ice. Bet you can't guess which one's which. Lamashtu is the first demon to reach godhood, and she works hard to tear down most competitors who approach her lofty throne. It is said she gained power over the unborn through ripping out her own womb and devouring it. Then she regrew her body by consuming 1,000 infants. And you wonder why she has power over all monsters. Well, that actually comes from the murder of an ancient deity of travel and beasts known as Kochonus, who was the mentor of Desna, by the way, which caused a centuries-long enmity between the two deities. But back to children, she has the power to lay blessings upon the wombs of mothers, guaranteeing they conceive and are fruitful. However, this comes at the price of the fruit being rotten, Lamashtu's blessing causing great disfigurement. Lamashtu holds domain over all unintelligent monsters, and they treat all mankind as an enemy. She is also willing to help those plagued by monsters be protected, at a mutilating price. She is served by several demons, with the most powerful being 7 creatures who may be her own daughters, the 7 witches. As for her more humanoid faith, there are plenty, outside of those who just beg for help temporarily. Her more permanent followers look at all that is beautiful in the world and declare it false, working to mutilate and eliminate all instances of beauty. This leads them to mutilate their own flesh, wearing their end scars as trophies to their devotion. They also work to birth as many children as possible, the most devout doing so in rituals where the child is transformed into one of Lamashtu's beasts and tears their way out of their mother's womb. Usually this is done without healing magic. We are dealing with a chaotic evil deity. You knew what you're signing up for. Moving on, it's about time for a side tangent. The part of the show where we do pick a favorite child. So many monsters claim connection to Lamashtu, so we are kind of spoiled for choice today. However, it is my show, so I just picked randomly Medusa. Not Gorgons, Medusa. Because Gorgons on tabletop are weird bold creatures for some reason. Either way, Medusa are based off of Gorgons from Greek mythology. Medusa and her two sisters. One way or another, the sisters had the power to turn all those who gaze upon them into stone. And by that I mean there are a lot of stories with different information on them, so too many branches to go into right now. In Pathfinder, Medusa have the same power, which have caused the species to become outcasts and the creatures to become eternally bitter. They live far from civilization, or they live as manipulators from the walls and sewers of a city. There are Medusas hidden in every major city in Avastan, though their origin is said to be the Isle of Iblados, which, for those of us with the Dark Archive book, that is a name we have heard recently. They also act as shadow members of various crime families, because what else are they going to do? Oh, and they're also connected to religion heavily. There are especially empowered Medusa who follow Lamashtu, known as Uriel, named after one of Medusa's sisters. And more recently, we learn of Medusa blessed by Shaelin to break away from their kin and Dark Mother, named Spheno, after the other sister. I'm always glad to see some mythical representation. Going back on topic, I probably do not have to tell you this, but the priesthood of Lamashtu does not have a hierarchy, each respecting the others as fellow outcasts in a war against them. Whenever they do need to establish some sort of rank, they prove which one is the most deserving. However, raw power is the last thing checked, there being more of a focus on first scars, then number of children, the number of deformities, and only when all other of these are even, power. It is the duty of priests to keep a tribe together. After all, they are all outcasts, and they need to stick together to survive. Not even getting into the mention that Lamashtu decrees it. Priests are part of their ministries, and they are expected to mate, and therefore they have countless children of questionable parentage. But regardless of if a child is actually theirs or who the father is, it is the duty of Lamashtu's priests to help teach the children. After all, what kind of twisted monster only cares about children until the point of birth? Sure, the things the priests of Lamashtu teach children are disturbing, but it is slightly better than, well, I guess I shouldn't try to avoid real-world politics, shouldn't I? Anyway, Lamashtu in her faith is kind of not known for playing nice with civilization, so her shrines are usually far from public eye, being flat, bloodstained stones placed where monsters or tribes of humans can worship her, usually at the foot of a carved statue. In cases where they are in a city, well, it would be more accurate to say they're below the city. hidden deeply so that civilization never finds it. Either way, these shrines and temples are usually made with a basin for the creation of the water of Lamashtu, which is the unholiest of unholy water. Lamashtu's realm is Carnugia, the largest territory in the Abyss. It's big enough to fit multiple worlds inside it. Of course, this allows it to include every terrain known to man, which in turn allows all kinds of Lamashtu children to call the place home, some even forming their own nations there. However, Lamashtu has her own world, Yanaran. Made of several spiraling towers and sitting on a large mesa, this location is filled to the brim with the hand-picked servants of Lamashtu. This place is also home to many Nascal Demon Lords, the weaker creatures on their way to becoming lords in their own right. However, as of right now, Lamashtu has taken liking to these fresh meats, and allows them to live in her monstrous paradise for the deformed. Of course, being so spoiled for choice, one of them has to be our second side tangent. And who better than the Nascal Demon Lord, known as the Night Ripper. So few outsiders retain their mortal memories, but the one who was formerly Rictus Scroon is more than happy to do in death as he did in life. He served as a mercenary in Taldor, who used his position to make his way to various settlements in the country, killing and slowly murdering his victims. The finale always them slowly bleeding out in a pit outside of their hometown. When he was finally captured, they were more than ready to execute him for 46 deaths, until he took the time to point out 953 more graves. Needless to say, they were more than happy to execute him. Multiple times. But a freak accident would leave the murderer alive, but slowly more disfigured, until lucky number 13 succeeded. That was the end of Rictus Scroon, but not the end of the demon he was. When Lamashtu learned he had full recollection of his previous life, well, she took him in as her personal assassin, using her power to rise him to Nascal Demon Lord in a single flash. Now with authority over botched executions and pits, he serves his mistress faithfully, but seeks to one day continue where he left off. After all, 999 is such a small number when he now has the power to bury cities in his pits. Now it's time for a whirlwind of facts about Lamashtu. First, where is she most worshipped? First place to mention is northeastern Gurund, which is home to many evil gnolls and similar creatures who are children of Lamashtu. These countries being Osirian, Katapesh, and Nex. Then there are places filled with wilderness a cult can easily hide in, like the River Kingdoms, Vasyria, and Irisin. Finally, places ruled by non-humans, potentially even demons, like Belkzen and the World Wound. However, Lamashtu also marks the first deity who is a major deity in the Dragon Kingdoms, where she has a presence on the edges of civilization, like the local Darklands, the untamed Valashimine jungle, the impassable Wall of Heaven, and the vast deserts of Shah Gurung. In slightly more civilized places, she is worshipped in Nagajur, where Naga rule, and Rancho, where Kraken rules. Finally, she finds herself a niche in Goka, the city having a little underground market, perfect for hiding a cult. There are no set holidays, just wild parties to celebrate births, deaths, deformities, breakfast. You know how it is with cults. Though they hold the entire month of Lamashtu as sacred to them, for obvious reasons. Holy text Lamashtu actually has two of them. First is the 4 hides of Lorm, which are 3-level straps stitched together, made from the writer's own flesh, which she peeled off herself. What happened to the 4th? It's probably better not to know. Then there's the skull of Mashog, a Yanite skull blessed by Lamashtu to be able to speak her doctrine in various languages. Her faithful from all across Avastan meet every year to listen to their proclamations, and then have champions fight to the death for the glory of their tribe, holding the skull until the next international meeting. But one more book is needed. It is Side Tangent number 3, a Divine Fighting Style, and it is from Divine Anthology, so actual lore this week. Festivity of Corpses is a tome which describes the fighting style of Lamashtu herself, known as Lamashtu's carving. The techniques are recorded in blood, and no 2 copies are the same due to lack of central faith, but they each end up depicting more or less the same style either way. This fighting style allows one to trade in ability bonuses to their attacks to instead cause the same and persistent bleeding damage, and with enough practice, to stagger someone who is attacked while bleeding, them instinctively recoiling from your savagery. Finally, let's look at allies and enemies of Lamashtu, or as Lamashtu calls them, enemies. Though again, she does nurture many Nascal Demon Lords, and she does have some planar allies who are not just beings she tortures. 2 in fact. First is Bloodmaw, which is the lesser one, a Yeth Hound leading a pack of Yeth Hounds, personally loyal to Lamashtu. He is torn apart by his heterochromia. And then the other is Lamashtu's own herald, the Yeth Osmari. This jackal beast does nothing more than rampage whenever Lamashtu sends him to the material plane. It also tends to travel with a pack of Yeth Hounds, known as a Black Hunt, who are the oldest and most vicious of their kind. For gods, Lamashtu has an ancient rivalry with Desna since she killed Desna's mentor, but Lamashtu does not really care about the childless goddess. Ugathora's undeath spreads rapidly, threatening the living beings that Lamashtu calls her children. Rovagug is a rival of destruction, and she sees disfiguring Shaylin to be a fine dream. However, the most hated will always be the demon lord Pazuzu, who was once her lover and equal until he stabbed her in the back. However, he did not realize she could crawl her way back out, and once she did, she retook their joint realm for herself, and has been chasing the crafty bird ever since. And that's pretty much the end, but we still have our final side tangent of the day. Starfinder. How is Lamashtu's faith doing in the distant future? She has adapted by focusing on a certain kind of monster. Everyone is a monster deep, deep down, and Lamashtu and her followers work to teach others to let it all out. She takes to the shunned, neglected, mutilated, and forsaken, and gives them a home. Then eventually, they become not half-nude cultists covered in blood, but doctors, scientists, psychologists, and teachers. And from there, they help people with biological augmentations, genetically modified children, creating twisted art which bombards the innocent with images of violence, and self-help gurus who counsel those at their worst and help them stand on their own 2 feet again, under the murder monster's wisdom, of course. After all, the wise demon lord has now only 2 real tenets: become a monster and create other monsters. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Considering Lamashtu is a deity of warped body and mind both, I thought today's video could be a nice stand-in for deviant abilities. Especially since we had case files that did not directly jump out at me as ways I could make a video for them. And of course, videos I wanted to make, but they did not end up in the pages of Dark Archives. I would have loved the chapter on something like the hero, or something alien related. But I guess that is just not in the cards. Though speaking of cards, stop by next week when we have a visit from a certain item salesman in the middle of summer. Well, I hope you will enjoy the video.